Well, alright everybody, welcome back for part 2 here of this War Gods restoration. As you can see, I've pretty much got it all done except for the sides of the control panel. The artwork is at the print shop right now, but it won't be ready until I come back from my vacation because I'm leaving for Reno. I'm driving to Reno here tomorrow morning for 5 days, and I won't be able to get this done until I get back. But it's 99.9% done already, so I want to go ahead and show it off before I leave. So everything's been done. I went on the side art and touched up everything that needed to be touched up. It looks pretty phenomenal now. I can't get too good of a shot on it because I'm limited by lighting, but you can see that it still looks pretty good. So, as well as the other side. Everything is, all the marks have been touched up and fixed up, if you will. This machine is now in phenomenal condition. So, side art looks pretty good. The Marquee did not work when I got it, and that was due to a faulty starter. I removed the starter and put a new one in there, and the bulb lit up nice and bright, so no problem there. I took the Marquee out and flattened it because it was curved inward on the edges, and so I fixed that problem. I mentioned that it had a Wills Gardner D9200. And it had a little bit of a screen burn in it, and I was willing to accept it. But after I turned the machine on and let it run for about an hour, when I came back, the screen was real red. So I turned down the red and I turned down the brightness, and I got it back into a good looking picture. So then I turned the machine off. Well, the next day I come out and turn it back on, and after it's on for a little bit, it starts to get red again. So I go into the settings, and it turns out that it's not saving the settings for the colors. It saves the settings for the contrast, brightness, and position of the screen. But when I turn the red down on the RGB, when I turn the monitor off back on, it goes back to default. So I'm not sure what the problem with that was, and I wasn't happy with that. So I took it out, and I put another 27-inch monitor in here. There was a guy on Craigslist who was parting out a racing game, and he had a 27-inch standard resolution Neotech. So I went to his place and I bought the monitor from him for $100. So that's what I threw in here. Since it was already modded for a 27-inch, they had to cut the brackets that mount the monitor in there. I was fortunate to find this 27-inch replacement on Craigslist for $100. So I threw that in there, and it's got a phenomenal picture now. So I'll show it off here in a minute. So I did change the monitor out again to from what was in there, but it's I have no problems with this one. Everything synced up, and the colors are great, and I was able to get everything working the way it's supposed to be, and I have no problems with this one. So this one looks great. So I'll show it off here in a minute. The control panel. As I mentioned before, the CPO was in fantastic shape, but it was missing the Lexan, and it had some sheet metal screws in here instead of the security screws that are supposed to be in there. And so I contacted my friend C. Tazi, and I purchased a new Lexan from him off of eBay. And it turns out that the layout for this is identical for Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, except for the 3D button. Now the hole for run on this particular Lexan is about right here. And of course the center of this button is right here. So I have to take my Dremel out, and I have to Dremel out the hole to allow the correct fitting of this 3D button. But because this button's so big, it covers up the other hole that was supposed to be for run. So everything turns out fine, but it turns out that this Lexan overlay is a perfect fit for War Gods except for the 3D hole. You have to route it out with a Dremel tool, a sanding bit, and then fortunately the 3D button is big enough to cover the hole that run is supposed to have, if you will, and then the 3D still goes in its hole. So everything turns out fine. I mean, you can see you can't see the hole for where run's supposed to be. That's about 1/4 of an inch behind this black part. I should have left this unhooked, but you get the idea. So anyway, it turns out perfect. I got the new Lexan, got the security screws in there, changed the joysticks out. Brand new 8-way green joysticks. All 10 buttons are brand new. The Player 1, Player 2 Start are brand new. They were yellow before. And the 3D buttons are brand new old stock I got on eBay. And I changed the light bulb out, and I put LEDs in there instead of the light bulbs, because the light bulbs, after about half an hour or so, they get kind of hot. Not so hot that they're uncomfortable or that you can't play the game, but noticeable enough to where you just tap it and hold it for a couple seconds, you're like, oh man, that's kind of hot. So I got rid of the light bulbs and put LEDs in there instead. I had some extra pinball LEDs laying around, but I had to mod the wiring, and I'll get to that in a second. But I put LEDs in here instead of light bulbs because of the heat factor and because the LEDs will last a little bit longer. Now, as far as wiring the LEDs in there, the LEDs, I mentioned I got them from my pinball stash. They are 5-volt LEDs, and the wiring going to this is 12 volts. So I put a resistor in line with the wiring to bring down the voltage to about 7 volts. So I now have 7 volts running to these instead of the 12, so they're a little bit dimmer, and they also don't get hot, and I want to preserve the life of the LED and not blow it up by running 12 volts to a 5-volt LED. So that problem is now resolved. That's how I did it. So these light up nice and good, and they're LEDs. They should last quite a while. Another benefit was that the 2 light bulbs that were in here, the coin door lights were out, so I took the bulbs that were in here and put them in the coin door lights. Now those light up, so I'm good to go on that. So, long story long, that kind of explains all of that. Also, I did touch up the front. You remember on the first part of the video, there was I found out after a little bit of research and looking at this control panel that somebody has actually rebuilt this panel with parts from another panel, because you can look on the inside and see the connecting wooden pieces that put all the pieces together, and somebody has rebuilt those parts with new nails and new brads and all that stuff. So, and you can see all these holes here. I found the correct colors. I found the dark blues for the dark blue area and the greens for the green area. I mean, you can see that hole there from where somebody put a nice big staple through the wood. The color matches pretty good from what I could match up as far as some model paints. So I went down to my local hobby store and I got some paints that matched about as perfect as I could get them to match. So you can see the green matches pretty good, the dark blues match pretty good. The light blues not so much, but that's because I painted it and then I went like this to get the paint off around the outside. It kind of dulled it a bit, but I'm not too really worried about it. But everything else matches up pretty well, and you can see just from looking at it that it's a lot better than how it used to be. Again, you can go around and see the green matches up pretty well and the dark blue and everything. So the front of the control panel is nice and cleaned up as best as I can do it. The front of the machine didn't really need much, just a good wipe down. So, and last but not least, I made some bezel cards for all the characters because I knew nothing about the combos. Behind here is another piece like this one, and I went ahead and made these bezel cards to cover up the one that's down here that shows the moves, but does not show any of the auto combos, any of the regular combos, or any of the fatalities. So I made my own bezel cards here with all the listings of all the moves. Let's see if you can read it here. Yeah, skeleton trap, smoke, teleport, electric shock, hella kick, 10-hit combo, 3D slow-mo auto combo, and a fatality. So I made my own little bezel cards here, so to help me learn the game a little bit better. They got all 10 characters there, and they're 4 inches by 2.5, and all 10 of them fit pretty much perfect when you size them that way, the whole width of the bezel. So that's the cabinet. It turned out real nice, way better than what it used to look like. So let me go ahead and flip it on here. I'll kill the light and we can watch it in action. Okay, that gives you an idea of what the LEDs look like as far as lighting those things up. They look real nice. And the monitor looks very, very crisp and nice. No issues with it. Kill this light too. I was lucky this guy was selling this monitor and parting out that racing cabinet because I didn't want to have to put one of my spare 25-inch monitors in here, because the 25-inch monitors I'm trying to save for the other machines, and being that this machine was already modified to accept a 27-inch monitor, I was lucky that I could find that 27-inch replacement. So like I said, this is a 27-inch Neotech standard resolution. Now War Gods is a medium resolution game, but you can change it to standard resolution if you have the updated boot ROM, the updated hard drive, and you change the dip switch number 1 on bank 2, and it changes to standard resolution. And fortunately I do, and I did, and now I can run it on a standard res monitor. But it looks phenomenal. Nice and crisp and clear, and everything looks great. So again, Marquee works, monitor looks great, the 3D buttons and the coin door lights. So overall, the restoration turned out real great. I'm happy, real happy with the way that this thing looks. I really like the T-molding. It really makes the game stand out from the other games in the row, or in the line, if you will. So again, that's it. Thanks. And when I get the midway sides on, I'll go ahead. Now, what I got printed out was I had these printed out, the same ones that are on the MK3 with the 3D design. I had two of these printed out, or I'm having two of these printed out to go on this cabinet. Now, that's not what came on here originally. Somebody had, like I mentioned, I chipped a bit of this paint off to see if someone had painted over the original sides, but they had not. This side and this side is not the original sides that were part of this original War Gods control panel. Somebody has put this control panel together from different pieces. The front piece and the two sides, well, obviously the front piece is from War Gods, but the two sides are not. Somebody took these two sides off a different panel and reattached them to the rest of this panel. So they didn't just paint over the original War Gods artwork. So I was unfortunate in that, or I would have just stripped it. So to avoid having just nothing here, I am having two of these printed up. And what I might do in retrospect is I'm going to go ahead and apply them on here, but it's going to look kind of strange to have the green T-molding, the green side art, the green control panel, everything else green, and then have red midway. So what I may do is go back in Photoshop and change all of this to green, and then have another set printed up where the midway is in green letters instead of red, and then put that should look pretty neat, and I'll have something unique to my machine and kind of a conversation piece, if you will. So otherwise, that's it. Again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more information.